Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the local game store training grounds. My name is Andrew Lucio. I am a player, a connoisseur of fine trading card games, and we are going to give you the benefit of all we can today here on the show. So with me, I've got Paul Fortin. Paul is one of our players that literally came in, started playing on a shop deck, pushed it all the way into a Nationals invite, and has done exceedingly well with every event that he's done. We've also got James Teeple. James Teeple back in 2019 when nobody knew how to play the game, got a top 8 out of calling. Hell yeah, that's how you do it. But he's a really good player, probably one of the best Orinthia players that's ever played the game, and very, very knowledgeable. To my left here, we've got Jonathan Wyatt. Jonathan Wyatt got his invite and has topped multiple events as far as the RTNs go leading up into Vegas. And he also got third in the ProQuest at Vegas. But did you see that in the article? No, you didn't. And they mentioned some other people who didn't do anything. I know, right?
Yeah.
And then Brendan Patrick.
After I smacked up Rob Smigel.
I hope you're watching this, Brendan. Come back to the store and get scooped. Anyways, over here on the edge, we've got Kyle Waple. Kyle Waple is probably one of the best TCG players that you'll ever, have the pleasure of sitting across from. He's had multiple tops in a lot of different games before Flesh and Blood, Dragon Ball Super. And then coming into Flesh and Blood, multiple tops at RTNs, and then finally, of course, getting his Nationals invite, and then finally going top 8, as you know, in the calling. And this is the biggest calling that they've ever done. And I'm so excited about the future of the game, and Kyle's going to be with us as well. So what are we talking about today? So every single one of these shows, just kind of give you a breakdown of what we're going to be doing. We'll always have a panel. Usually about 4 or 5 of us will be here. These are all people from the local game store team. And we will be representing at every major event. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to, as best we can, convey the things that we have learned. So we never want anyone here to take whatever we're saying as the gospel, but we definitely want to just share with you the information we have. And if it helps you, great. And if it doesn't, that's fine too. So we're just going to get into it. Today's show is going to be about Tales of Aria. We've had a little bit of time, a few weeks, and a couple of events to really get a taste for Sealed from Vegas all the way into just today recently when we did a couple of drafts. And we're going to share what we've learned, and we're going to kind of talk about each hero, and then we'll do a little bit of, just kind of waxing poetic about what we think the meta is going to shape out to be, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I'll start things off. I don't like Sealed. I never have liked Sealed. Doesn't matter what trading card game I've ever played. I don't like limited formats because I don't think limited formats lend themselves to really high skill ceilings. The more variables you cut out, invariably you get to a point where skill takes over. You've got chess, you've got all these different games that have existed for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, that have so limited variations that the skill level to play in that and be very, very good, like these Russian grandmasters, is super high. So when you come and you sit across with your 80 and you sit across from me with my 80 and I scoop you up with Brute, that's what feels good. That's what feels skillful. But being at the mercy of, did I get an equipment in my 6-packs, and did I do this and did I do that, and oh man, your 6-packs were better than my 6-packs, and let's draft. Okay, well, I'm at a table full of killers and everybody else got a table full of people who don't know how to draft, so they got all the good cards. It just feels very bad. It just feels super, super bad. Let's start with just opinions on Sealed. We'll start with James, and then we'll work our way across to James. What is your opinion on Sealed? Do you like it? Do you feel like it actually rewards skill? And what are your takeaways from it, as far as for people who enjoy playing trading card games?
I mean, I personally like the way Sealed plays out normally because it requires at least some knowledge of how to build your deck properly. So. Mm-hmm. It is very luck based on what you open and everything. Like if you open bombs, you open bombs. If you don't, you don't. But you also have to be able to oh hey look, I got these bombs in these 2 colors, or these 2 characters. I mean, and then but they're all the comments are crap. Mm-hmm. You should probably then just build the character that has the best overall play out consistency. Yeah. So I mean, it is very luck based, but you still need to be able to build properly. And if you can't do that, you probably lose most of your games.
Okay. So, Paul, to build on what he just said, targeting on the knowledge of building, do you think that just proper building is the only thing that is skill intensive when it comes to Sealed, or do you think there's other things that are kind of mixing in? And obviously, what do you think about Sealed?
I mean, there's obviously playing out the games. You still have to sequence properly. You still have to like respect your opponent's threats and things like that.
Yeah, that's true.
So even if you like are built the best deck, you still have to pilot the deck as well.
True. So as far as your personal opinion on sealed?
Personally, I have always thought of sealed as like a fun format, like it's good for pre-releases and stuff.
Hell yeah.
I never really considered it like a competitive.
That's what I want to
thing.
hear. Your little casual throwaway fun format. Take that, sealed players. I like that. That's good, Paul. I agree with what you said. All right, Jonathan, to build on what Paul said, as far as what you think skill-wise and what you feel about sealed in general.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what Paul said there. I think one of the biggest skills you can arm yourself with in this game is reading. So I think...
RTC, my guys, RTC.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the people that actually took the time to read the cards understand what they do and really look at the play lines that you can run into. I think those are the people that are going to walk away with the best experience in all the formats, limited. So really, I think Sealed's a fun format. If you're going to get to the more complex heroes like Lexi and Oldheim, I think knowing those lines and how to play them are going to be important. However, I think my issue with Sealed right now is that there are a lot of low-skilled players that can hop onto Briar and really utilize that arcane damage to swing momentums. And if you don't really know how to block up and save up your turns properly so you can swing momentum back, I think you're going to be really hurt in this Sealed format.
Truer words were never spoken. It's like absolutely insane how true those words. Build on what Jonathan said, Kyle, in the context of this limited format was not well made because of the fact that you can't answer arcane damage, and of course your personal opinion on Sealed.
Limited sucks. I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta know how to open some packs, put some good cards together, and then at the end of the day, you gotta know how to play the game, sequence properly. But like, you can do all of that in constructed, minus the part where you open packs. So I don't care. It is what it is. And yeah, Lexi does not feel like she was made in mind, because there's like no spell void, and there's arcane barrier on one legendary, and it's like, what are we doing here?
So a lot of the basic skill intensive mechanics in this game are usually mitigated when you come back to the full 80. When you come back to the full 80, doing your pre-side, we throw in the null rune, mitigate arcane. We throw in defense reactions to mitigate some of the 4s and 5s that are trying to creep across for a 2-card commitment. And we can do a lot of different things. We can mitigate things. But when you're in that limited format, whether it be draft or sealed, you don't always get the cards that you need. And effectively, this whole entire set, unless you're running ice and you're lucky enough to pull the legendary, you're not getting the arcane barrier. So you're just going to get stuck out on that. And Jonathan's right. There's a lot of low-skill players that are coming in, and they're able to run away with games. Now, conversely, if you're LSS and you're trying to create a game that is dynamic and fun and hopefully will capture the imaginations of people and get them wrapped up in the excitement of winning games or stealing games away that they probably shouldn't have won, then this was probably a well-designed set. And maybe when James White was talking about this is the best designed limited set they've ever done, maybe that's what he meant from a we're going to make a lot of money standpoint and get people into the game standpoint. And maybe that's the only standpoint that matters. Like, we're as players, we're always looking for, the skill intense, move it down, grind it to the last 1-1 and then go. But that doesn't feel good to new players who are coming in, because it feels like the learning barrier, the learning curve is super steep, and then it becomes something that's intimidating and sometimes off-putting, right? Okay, so with that all being said, I think the general consensus is one person thinks Limit is good and everyone else thinks it's not so good. So it is what it is. Now, with that being said, takeaways. A lot of the takeaways that I have are pretty much similar to any other limited format. Dominate's insane. Anytime you're working with 20 health and people can push in 4 or 5 damage on big 8 dominate turns or even 10 dominate turns, I mean, that's just really good. So from that context, does everyone agree that running Lexi, doing Shiver, and trying to just buff up arrows, would that just be a consistent plan? I mean, I played Paul today, and Paul was just like 8 dominate, 8 dominate, 7, feel free to block as much as you like. 8 dominate. So it was not so good, and I ended up losing that match. And I feel like I should have won that match, but at the same time, it's like when something is very consistent, especially with dominate, it's just really, really good. I feel like dominate can definitely lead what you're building, why you're building, and actually lead you to a lot of really good wins. What do you think, Paul?
So if you're going to play Lexi Unlimited, you want a lot of pump spells, and you want a lot of good, especially red arrows. And then for Lexi, I prefer Ice because you can kind of, like with the Dominate, you're guaranteeing good on-hit effects that'll disrupt your opponent. And then one other thing that's important for any of the classes in Sealed is having the right equipment. And I think like having
luck-based, super luck-based.
Well, yeah. But if you have like having Honing Hood is like a good reason, like that helps a lot in the Lexi deck.
Yeah.
And then like other equipment for other classes as well.
Absolutely. So so what's the general mindset then, as far as, we'll start with Jonathan. What's the general mindset of going into this limited format with Tales of Aria? What are the very key things that you feel are the most impactful in limited?
Well, if I were to focus on equipment, since that's where we last ended this, if I'm going Lexi, I think the two equipment that I find the most important would be Honing Hood and Mark of Lightning.
Yep.
I think those two really lend themselves to helping push that momentum that Lexi needs in order to get her win conditions. I think as far as the other two heroes are concerned, Oldhim really enjoys the Cracker Jacks, especially with the thumb.
Oh God, yes.
Also utilizing those auras to help add in those pumps as well to get your thump moving would also be really good. And then as far as Briar's concerned, the suede hides are probably going to be your most important equipment.
So James, what do you think the proper ratios are? Like when you're, let's say, we'll do it from the context of draft, right? So if I'm going through drafts and I'm going pack to pack, am I just looking for high value attack versus high value non-attack, and then choosing which one outvalues the other? Like for example, Electrify, red. If I play from the arsenal, I'm going to draw a card. It's also going to give me some bonus threat. So maybe I rate that at like an 8 out of 10. And then over here in the same pack, I've got a red singeing steel blade. So that's a 1/4 guaranteed push, 1 arcane. So like with those two cards, and I'm looking at doing, Briar, obviously, if I'm looking at these two cards, what do you pick? How do you pick? And then what ratio are you looking for when you're doing your deck? Is it an even 15-15? Are you looking more for like a 20-10 as far as attacks versus non-attacks? What are you trying to do?
I mean, so when I'm playing Briar, I'm not really looking for non-attacks versus attacks, but if I'm looking more for the elementals. Like my first priority is making sure I have enough fuse cards.
Yeah.
And like if I could, I would go 15-15, or probably be more likely like 13-17, but I also just go over 30 all the time. So I would just focus the elementals first for your fusing effects and try to make the ratio as best as possible. So like if you have more earth fusion, you obviously put more earth in, and then lightning for lightning, and then afterwards just figure out the best cards. I'm not very good at explaining this. But
Well, I mean, just like, so when you're looking at that pack, right? So like
I
just
take the lightning infusion every time.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay,
Singeing
that
Blade
makes
would be
sense.
the last one.
That makes sense. Even though the arcane is guaranteed, it's just better to have the card draw.
It's card draw. It's guaranteed. It's on every single attack. So if you can give, it's first off, it's a non-attack.
Yep.
You have another non-attack that's 0. Like say you just have a Bramble Spark, and then you have a go again, and then you can just do 2 attacks. If they don't block both them fully, you're gonna get an extra 3 damage off somewhere.
And hopefully at least one card out of their hand.
Yeah, I mean, with the Singeing Blade doesn't have go again, it doesn't lead into anything else. The non-attacks are more important in Briar by a little bit because they can guarantee go again on your attacks themselves. Just if they're both reds, so
Yeah.
the lightning card can give 3 damage a redraw, and if you pitch a blue, you already still have 2 floating. So it almost costs you nothing, and it just guarantees 3 damage if it hits,
Yep.
and an extra Earth Aura token. The Singeing Steel Blade, yes, it can get 1 damage in on its own and give you 1 Earth token, but if they just block 4 and you don't have anything else to do, you got 1 Earth token, you got 1 damage in, and then you just had if you had a block with the other 2 cards in hand, sure, it's fine, but I just think the lightning card's better.
Yeah. So, Kyle, in the context of draft, how are you doing your selections over these past couple of drafts that we've done?
Literally me going, I feel like non-attack icons have been the most contested, and usually I'm leaning more towards the element that I want to play. So I'll usually pick like an element, and then that element's going to let me lean towards one of the two other characters. So it's more of just doing that and then just seeing what's getting handed to me and then just making my call based on, you know, what people around me are taking.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about cross-potting. So in the old days, and when I say old days, basically just when I was younger, effectively, if you were doing high-level skill-based drafting, it was in your pod, 8 people. And a lot of what we've seen so far with Channel Fireball and their hosting events and what LSS is doing seems like we're doing cross-potting, which is basically you sit at a table with 8 people, you draft your cards, and then you just play against the 600 people that are in the room. Doesn't feel as skill-intensive considering that players can sit down at tables with less experienced players who should not be passing certain cards, but they are passing certain cards, and they're not value hunting, or they're just like they're not value hunting in the sense that they're taking cards that are better. They're just more value hunting in the sense that this card's worth more money on the secondary market, rare drafting as we call it. So anyone can jump in here. It really doesn't matter. What is your feelings on going into nationals with this cross-potting, and how much do you think it takes away, if it takes anything away at all, to the skill of drafting? Anyone can jump in. Anybody.
I mean, it's like, it feels bad. It feels like the drafting part doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it still matters for your personal deck, but it feels bad that, like, if I sit with 7 really good players and I have a worse draft because of it, but then Jonathan over here sits with 7 people that just don't know what they're doing, and he gets like the best draft possible, that he goes in with an advantage over me.
Yeah, and I really hope that does happen, actually. Thank you. Thank
Are
you
we
so much.
are we 100% sure
That it's cross-potting?
Yeah.
No, so we're actually, that's why I said that. Like, it may or may not be. So, like, so for example, if you guys don't know anything about nationals, this is what we've seen so far information-wise. We're going to go day 1, 5 rounds of CC, then we're going to do 3 rounds of draft. All you need are 4 wins to get to day 2, okay? 4 to get to 2. Now, the next day, we flip it. We start with 3 rounds of draft, and then we go into 5 rounds of CC. And I don't have much details on that second day as far as everything shakes out. But the deal is that every draft that they've done, even at the professional event, i.e. the calling, and yes, you can argue that they were side events, whatever the case may be, but I feel like it's kind of a precursor to how they're going to run drafts. So they did cross-potting. And if you're in a smaller, kind of side event, makeshift thing, it should be super easy to just have them fight in their pods, but they didn't do that. They took everybody, they did it in one event, and then they cross-potted. So, I mean, to answer your question, nobody knows definitively because they haven't given us that information.
Okay.
We're just basically basing this off of who is going to be hosting the event and how they ran drafts when they could have just easily done, oh, hey, you're 8 players, you're drafting, and it's just you 8 versus each other.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I just hope they don't do that.
And why do you hope that? Tell us your thoughts and opinions.
I mean, they already said it over there.
Oh,
fill
my
your dead
goodness.
air.
I'll fill that dead air. All right. So, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know, man. I just, every time that we get into this conversation about what's more skill intensive, I always have my opinion on it. And I know that there are probably players out there who have been former professional players from Magic the Gathering, and I'm sure that they have opinions that some people would give more weight to. But at the end of the day, I've been playing TCGs for over 20 years. I own my own store. I've won an RTN with probably one of the quote-unquote, worst decks with Rhino. And the reason a lot of people say Rhino is a bad deck, and it's a very legitimate reason, is that Rhino, for the most part, is a 3-card intensive deck. It's a 3-card intensive hand. No, just deck, period, right? Because, like, everything in Rhino is as an additional cost. Discard something. Almost everything.
Same.
So it's like just 3-card all the time. And if you look at Tales, right? Tales is all 3-card too. You got to play a card, you got to pitch a card, you got to fuse a card.
Yeah.
And the same thing with me. I got to play a card, I got to pitch a card, and then I got to discard a random card.
Same with me with Bolton.
With Bolton?
Yeah.
Bolton? Oh, yeah. Bolton's super bad. Oh, God. Don't even get me started about Bolton. Bolton, I don't even know what this was, but it's basically this. This is Bolton. Hey, I'm going to play Take Flight, and then I'm going to do this, and then I got to charge this card into my soul, and now I've got maybe one more thing I can do. That feels bad.
Yeah.
Very, very hand intensive. Feels super bad.
Still does okay.
Yeah, it does all right. I mean, it's not bad. Like you go off on this super combo, and you know I think they hid that combo in there because they thought nobody would play him. Hey, you know what? In testing, we found out that he could attack 20 times. Oh no, nobody will play him. Don't worry about it. They're gonna go take flight, pitch a card, charge it, and they're gonna be like, I'm not playing this guy ever again. And then some sweaty nerds out there said, oh hey, you know what? There's this combo where you can attack 90 times. Feels bad.
6 times, thank you very much.
6 times. All right. So let's use that as a good segue point. All right. Tales of Aria is in. We've had enough time in the limited format to get a taste of what all the cards can do, and we're already starting to brew our own builds. You know, figuring out Lexi and trying to do some other things. Start with Paul. Go around. Doesn't matter who jumps in. But Paul, your top 4. Right now, based on everything that you know, even if you feel like it's a little bit of speculation because we haven't gotten to any real big CC events, your top 4 heroes, they could all be equal. You could rank them 1 through 4 and say this guy's going to be the best, that chick's going to be the worst, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Your top 4.
My number 1 would probably be Prism. She was already strong in the previous meta. Chain got nerfed, and it doesn't seem like the new Aria heroes are going to affect her or have a strong matchup into her very well, so I think she'll be very well positioned. I'm biased towards Dash, but I think she'll also be very good.
I think that's a legitimate pick.
Again, similar. She has good matchups into the Aria heroes, I think. 50-50 with Prism probably, and then like good against the remaining heroes now that Chain has been nerfed as well. The last 2, I like Bravo. I think he could be okay. His main issue is he probably has hard matchups against Prism and Dash.
He's got the shield now, though.
He does have the shield. I don't know if the shield is that. It's annoying for Dash, but I think she can play around it.
But it's a -1, then a -2, and that's off of a blue. And it can even go -3.
It could go -3, but if you play more Purifiers, you're still getting in chip damage, which is basically all you're trying to do with the pistol anyway.
But do you think in a game where most games are won in the margins that them edging out the 1, 2, and 3, because that's 3, 4, 5, 6 damage, them edging out 6 damage in a turn?
Well, they're also
on one card?
They're also giving up Anathos for that though, so they're only threatening 4 back at the most each turn, instead of 6. So
well, it's only
you're
on
trading
1
off.
blue though.
Yeah, I mean Dash is
Does it have a
damage.
3-card hand?
Yes.
You know what you could do with a 3-card hand? And tell me if this is good.
Crippling Crush.
No, look, check it out.
No.
3-card hand. I can go Tear Asunder, pitch a 3 cost up, and then I can pitch a 3 cost up to swing Anathos for 7, dominate, and if it deals damage, you got to discard 2 cards. That's on a 3-card hand.
Oh yeah, but then you're not playing the
Put
shield.
on a shield.
The 4th card was for the shield,
Well, you
and it was a
I
blue.
have Anathos and
You
a
can't
shield.
Anathos and shield.
Oh, that's right.
It's 2 costs.
All right, look.
Yeah.
So look.
So
Winter's
you go
Well. Winter's Well, right? Winter's Well.
Why would you?
Okay.
Sure.
Right?
No,
5.
that's a Frost card.
5, dominate.
It's a Frost weapon.
Oh yeah.
What?
That's
Oh,
on
then
hold-
you're
that's
the other
on
one, the
hold
Stupid
then.
Justice one, right?
The
Then it's still 5 dominate.
Titan's Fist.
Because he
Yeah.
gets +1, right?
So you can do
Titan's
it.
Fist. There you go.
Yeah, you could do it for 5 and dominate.
That's
but,
not bad.
Yeah.
Force you to use your equipment.
No, I think it definitely makes the matchup, the Guardian versus Mechanologist matchup, at least more even.
Where was your percentages at as far as that matchup? Was it 60-40?
Before.
70-30?
Yeah, maybe in between there, 65-30. It was pretty Dash favored.
All the Bravo players out there are like, "Ooh, I beat all the dashes I ever played."
Jonathan can confirm.
I don't want to talk about this.
Oh,
thing.
yeah, all right, number 4.
Number 4, well, I'll throw Rhino in there
Why?
because he has good match. Because he has a good matchup against Dash and Prism, and
That's true.
that's who I put 1 and 2. So if he has a good matchup against them, I think that's a good reason.
I feel like 70-30 is not really good. It's probably great or even amazing, but it's whatever. We'll get to me in a minute. Come on, James. Give me your top 4.
Top 4 just
Going into the meta. Everything you know now, even if it's speculation, doesn't matter. What's your top 4?
Prism, Bravo, Oldham,
You can put the old man in there. Number 3.
and I don't really have a number 4. Those are just my top 3 off the top of my head.
Hell yeah. He's like, there is no 4th. Who cares about Dash? Katsu? That's old news. Nobody cares about those decks.
I would say. No, shut up. As much as I like Viscera, Viscera is not a problem.
You just wait. We're gonna make it cancer.
Sure. Okay.
Hell yeah.
I probably put mech at 4th.
Oh, okay. Dash at 4th.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Jonathan?
Yeah, I feel like I'm really leaning towards a lot of what Paul said there. I think probably top of the meta, in my opinion, right now would be Prism. I think she has a lot of options, and really the only weakness I'm concerned about if I were to play Prism would be the Rhino matchup. But again, I think there are a lot of scared people that don't want to play Rhino just because of the dice roll effect, but if you're relying on that, it's probably Rhinor's probably not the hero for you. Otherwise, I would probably go with the dash. I think control is going to be a big aspect of this meta, and really dash has one of the best control experiences in the game right now.
I agree with that.
And I do believe that, especially for the Dallas calling coming up, there are a lot of Dallas dash players, so I would expect to see quite a few of those. So if that's not a part of your plan, then I would probably start planning. Otherwise, I feel that Bravo would probably be my number 3, just because in every matchup that I've played Bravo against, he feels very strong. I think the Terra Sunder and the Crippling Crush are probably 2 of his best resources that he has available to him right now, especially with the Anothos coming up with that Terra Sunder as well.
Absolutely.
And then as far as a 4th pick, I am kind of torn between 2 picks right now. I think right now, if I were to choose, it would probably be between Rhinar and Viscerai. I think the Spellbound Creepers are going to be a huge aspect into Viscerai's play.
It can be.
Really, you only have to get them off twice in a game, even one time, and you're still a large threat. Utilizing the instance for the go again, gaining action points, or utilizing
Doing
it to
something
create
on their turn.
Yeah, or doing something on their turn. However, I think when you do use the instance to activate on your opponent's turn, you're putting yourself on the back foot a little bit, because you do have to pay that resource cost and pay to play what you are utilizing there. So in order to get the Spellbound Creepers to continue to stay active, you have to do damage on your turn, not on your opponent's turn.
Let me throw this out there, right? You're playing Viscerai. You're going OTK Sonata strategy, all right? Okay, check it out. You get your opponent down to right around 20, okay? You activate the Creepers on their turn because you got a 2 Sonata hand. You Sonata on their turn for just the 4. And then potentially, if they take the damage, okay, you Sonata on your turn for the remainder of the game. And you don't have to worry about pushing in all this arcane over the time. Instead of trying to use Spellbound Creepers in a way where you're edging out rune tokens, wouldn't it be better just to wait until you have them within killing range?
I think that definitely is a possibility. However, right now, I think with the Spellbound Creepers, I think it actually opened up a lot of opportunities for Viscerai to not go OTK. So I think that's going to be the most interesting side of what we see in Viscerai coming up for the Dallas event, because I want to see all the different options that people can bring forward with Viscerai, and I think Spellbound Creepers has really opened up those lines of play.
Do you think people are paying enough attention to Skeletta also being an instant?
I think they are. I think Skeletta is definitely a great equipment piece. However, I believe that that's something that people will focus on with the OTK. And again, like I mentioned, I don't think OTK is going to be the only Viscerai that we see at ProQuest. So really, I think Viscerai has a lot of lines of play that will probably be utilized and opened up by various players, and that's really what I'm interested in seeing right now, because I feel right now that Viscerai is probably the most underplayed hero going into this. I don't think we see very many of them. And
Absolutely.
The ones that we do see are OTK, so I think that will have a lot of surprise factor coming up for the next event.
I think a lot of where we see players, especially players that haven't experienced a lot of different decks, losing is because of the fact that they don't have a lot of practice in the matchup. And a lot of your metas, whether you're in Virginia, Texas, whatever the case may be, they're really shaped around what's good for the good players that are there. And then that shapes the rest of the meta. So for example, if Kyle is on Prism and Prism's doing really well, then maybe 2 or 3 other people pick up Prism, and now they're playing Prism. So now your local went from 1 player to like 4 or 5 Prisms, and now everybody's sighting and getting experience against Prism. But then nobody picks up Viscerai. You show up at the Vegas calling, you sit across from a Viscerai, and you get scooped up because you're like, damn, I don't know how to play this deck. Lock? I don't know. I don't know if that was correct.
I just want to know how, in your example, how did the OTK get somebody down to 20?
Oh, so check this out. So this is what I tell people all the time, especially with Viscerai. Here's exactly what you can do. So with Viscerai, because of the fact that you're running Arc Knight Ascensions, you're running Become the Arc Knight, and you're running Rattlebones, you can have a lot of load Slogism and burst your tokens, and then generate more tokens. So you can actually, depending upon how your draws go in the early games, right? So like you're in the first 3 or 4 turns, and you're seeing those combination of cards, you can actually pop all your tokens and reset your tokens with a good Arc Knight Ascension Slogism turn. And Slogism and Arc Knight Ascension, if you're not playing it, oh my god, it's insane. Your opponent's going to be able to block maybe 3, maybe 4 damage. You're going to pull in 4 or 5 tokens back off the end. We were on the yellow for the +5. So we're always swinging across like 10 dominates. It feels really, really good.
Sure.
So that's what a lot of OTK players don't understand, is that you can be aggressive on turns with Arc Knight Ascension.
Okay.
But it's specifically with that card. So you can search it, you can block with it, you can use it, bring it back with Rattlebones off of the block. You have a lot of really good lines of play if you pull those cards in, because you can reset your tokens so easily. So the OTK version of it can do that, get your opponent to 20, and then boom, that's when you go off with Skeleton. You only need Rune Chance to be around 10 to kill your opponent at 20.
Okay.
It's really, really nice. It's so good. And then Rattlebones, if you have it on that turn, like what we like to do is we like to blow the 10 with the attack. They're going to take at least 1 arcane. Now, Rattlebones is instant, so we play the Rattlebones, and we can play the Rattlebones after we play Skeletta, because Skeletta's an instant, and then we can reset the turn, get another attack, and then push in even more damage with Rune Chance. With more Rune Chance that we just created from playing all these cards. So it feels kind of nice. There's a lot of really good, intricate lines of play with Viscerai. I agree with what you said because of the surprise factor. I don't think a lot of people have practice against that deck, and that's usually the reason why A, they lose to Rhinar, and B, they lose to Viscerai, which were your 4th picks, because of the fact that I don't think a lot of players are out there playing those decks, so they just don't have experience. Same thing with Dash. A lot of people don't play Dash.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to my final point here with those 4 or 5 heroes I just mentioned, is that one of the most interesting things about this new meta that's coming out is that I think there's a lot of balance to it, because there's at least a glaring weakness amongst any of the heroes that you select. So really, I think what will be interesting to see is how ProQuest shakes out, and see how people get to the top 8, because I think a lot of that will probably be based around being able to dodge on the bracket, and it'll be interesting to see who wins.
Okay, Kyle, top 4. Let's go.
God, it's not that exciting. I think Prism's at the top now. I mean, the only thing we were afraid of was Chain, so everyone had to play Coward Prism. Now we don't have to play Coward Prism anymore. So
Shout out to the McAfee brothers.
Now we're just going for it. So to me, Prism's at the top. I think Dash was always just one of the best picks. Like even going into the previous calling, like if you knew how to play Dash, you checked most things that were in the game, and you just kind of got inched out by Chain every now and then. So I feel like she still just sits up there, and she'll continue to just get in here and there. I don't think Ice messes her up that bad. So with those 2 at the top, I mean, no surprise, Rhino gets to just come in. He can either delete some items, or he's just gonna make Prism play the most unfun game they ever have to play, and then Prism just has to try to high roll. So it's the same thing as everybody else. And then my one exciting thing was to say Viscerai, but lo and behold, everyone at the table already said Viscerai. I think he's the Rune Blade going into the next set. He should have a solid matchup against Prism with all his little tools, his little tricks, and then that's it. I mean, we might see some cool things coming out of the Ice Heroes, but they're not in the top 4 for me.
Well, surprise, surprise, my number 1 pick, Brute.
Oh god.
Who cares?
Listen, Brute's going to sit at the top of the meta going forward, and let me tell you why. Let me explain to you why. Because all the guys that have been playing Brute, all the girls out there that are playing Rhinar, the best Brute, here's how it goes. We've been working with 3-card hands, and we know how important 3-card hands are. So we're very used to playing around with 2 and 3 card situations, because of the fact that when you get into the mid and late range, you have to block conservatively in order to stay alive for your bigger Blood Rush Bellow turns. So you throwing in frostbite tokens and all this other stuff. It doesn't mess us up because we've been doing this since day one, baby. We don't give a damn. We don't even care a little bit. We have excellent matchups against Prism, excellent matchups against Dash. Now, the hardest Dash matchup, and this should be something that you can speak more on to, is the mixed Dash. The ones that are actually running a lot of boost, and they can easily side out all of their equipment pieces and bring in more boost-heavy package. That's the harder matchup for Rhino. So if you're looking to get it on Rhino and you're going to be playing Dash, do you agree that's probably the better strategy? Because, I mean, you don't want to do equipment, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Having your equipment blown up by Arc Smash, it just sets you back way too far, and you're just never going to come back.
What do you think
that.
about Dash players sideboarding in Gambler's Gloves so that way they can kind of disrupt the Arc Smash?
I've never tried that personally. So I don't have any experience with that, so I guess I can't give a good opinion.
So you wouldn't do it then?
I'm still running so right after Tales came out, I switched to like a full control dash, and then seeing that the ice heroes weren't as strong as I was expecting them to be, I kind of switched a little bit back more into a hybrid version, so I can switch into like sideboard into an aggro for like Rhinar and Bolton and other matchups where you kind of need that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you like this. So, yes, my number one pick is always gonna be Rhino. It's Brute. I'm Alpha Brute, Brute Nation. But the point I'm trying to make here is that just in this particular meta, because of the way that those 3-card hands break out with all these different decks, and the fact that we are 0-point position against every other deck. No other deck has an advantage or a disadvantage against us. We just have to outplay our opponent. And that feels really, really good. That's the reason why I got on Brute in the first place, is because of the fact that even in the chain matchup, like in Vegas, I beat all my chain matchups because it's almost a hard 50-50. Same thing with Dorinthia. It's a hard 50-50 that kind of swings in Dorinthia's favor depending upon how much she can front load in the beginning in the first few rounds. Because if I take too much damage, then by the time we get into the race near the mid to late game, Dorinthia can win that race more easily than other decks can. But I feel like decks like that rely too heavily on Go Again are going to be shut out because of the fact that ice does exist. So that leads me into my second. So everyone here said Prism was number one. I get that. I don't disagree with it. But my second is actually a tie between two, and it's all potential and it's all speculation. But I really feel like this is the way the meta is going to shift. And if it does shift that way, Rhino unfortunately will actually go down. He won't be number one either. But there is the potential for Hand Destruction to run away with the entire meta. So Lexi and Old Man, because they can run ice, I really feel like they're going to share that number 2 spot, eventually become number 1, because of the fact that. So let's just look at the particulars. We look at Old Man. He can shut Prism down as far as any kind of Prism that's trying to push across anything with Spectra. So we can shut Spectra down easily, and at the same time, because of the Phantasm and Illusion and all this other stuff, we can shut that down too. A lot of guys that are running into problems with Prism playing any Guardian build, they're not bringing in Lead the Charge to generate extra action points so they can push momentum and then take care of the shields, the auras, and do things like that. So Hand Destruction is going to run away with the meta eventually when someone figures out the deck, and anybody can jump in if they want to say anything, but at the end of the day, we have a 4-card hand. Our intelligence is pretty much locked at 4. If you're not playing Prism with the library, and you're not playing Guardian with Stamp Authority or your Eisen's Peak's Helm, you're literally not getting more card draw. Card draw is very hard to come by in the game. It's all situational, it's all setup based, and at the same time, if you have a 4-card hand and I can get 2 cards out of your hand, working with a 2-card hand in a meta that's very dependent upon 3 feels really, really bad. And then just working with 2-card hands, period, feels bad. It doesn't allow you to push the kind of momentum you need in order to take control of the game. So being able to do that and do it consistently, and I think Old Man can do it more consistently than Lexi can, but Lexi's going to be able to do it with Dominate, so that's going to be more interesting. So I'm hoping to see something of that nature too. I really feel like Hand Destruction is going to run away with the meta once somebody figures those decks out. So I'm going to put them in at number 2. My number 3 slot's going to go to Prism. Prism's just too consistent and really, really good at just dominating opponents that can't match what Phantasm is perceived to be as a weakness. And even for example, if you're pushing it with Herald of Triumph, even if someone's sitting on 6s, that just feels insane. And you can always have the option of a Blinding Beam. And just because of the fact that Blinding Beam exists, every time somebody blocks, they have to go, damn, do they have the Blinding Beam? Do they have it? Should I overcommit? Should I block a little extra? Because there are going to be times when your Prism matchup is going to go Erudition. And you have to make the call right then and there. Because if they have the Blinding Beam, then they're going to knock your attack down. You didn't block enough. So now they're going to draw their 2 and they're going to continue their turn. And if that was the only 6 that you had in your hand, you're done. They're gonna run away with it. Then you can think to yourself, okay, well, here's what I'll do. I'll block it with the non-attack. I'll take the Scab Skins. I'll block 5. And they're like, oh, did you remember this pummel? Remember this time I had a pummel in my hand? Oh, okay, so now you're going to discard a card, and I'm going to draw 2, and I'm going to run away with the turn. So always respect your opponent. Like Jonathan said earlier, you should always be respecting your opponent. But at the same time, Prism just does all those things and does it in such a way that from every different angle you can think of, whether it be the attack reaction, the first setup with popping the Illusionist Gauntlets or whatever they're called, the Dreamweavers, whatever the case may be, they have so many different lines of play to push through their biggest bombs. And then finally, in my 4th position, it's going to be Dash. Because Control Dash, just like Kyle was saying, it's too good. It's so efficient. I get to block all day. I get to set up big defense reactions, and the only thing I need in my hand is 2 blues. And actually, sometimes I only need 1. Depends on the previous turn. I might have just done a big setup turn. Go ahead, jump in. You got something to say?
That's kind of nice. Yeah, you guys are talking about playing 3-card hands. I'm like, I'm usually happy just having 2 blues in my hand. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that you make, Andrew. Is efficiency is going to be the most important thing in this meta right now. I think the heroes that were just barely efficient with their mana, such as Katsu, where you have to pitch a blue, 0 cost in order to get your whole turn off and block with the rest of your cards in the previous turn with your hand. I think that's going to be a dead point in the meta, and really the heroes that are going to be at the top of that, especially the ones that I listed previously and which other people have also listed here, are those heroes that can really dump the resources and have extra left over while still being able to maintain a really powerful turn, even with 2-card hands.
Absolutely.
So I think that's going to be a very big point of the meta.
Any closing thoughts?
No.
Nothing at all?
I should have ranked 4th as Bolton. Just because everyone else is ranking their own stuff there.
Look, and I think Bolton is a very scary hero to be concerned with. I think Bolton's one of those heroes that could pop off at any moment. So I think that is one of those boogeymen under the closet heroes.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap things up at this point. I want you to come back and join us next time when we're going to basically be going over deck construction and how linear should a deck be and lines of play and all these other things that kind of go into deck construction as a whole. We want to get everybody as ready as we can for the ProQuest. Whether you're going to enter the ProQuest directly or you plan on doing the main event and then hoping for top 64 so you can get in for free. Either way, it's really good just to kind of theory craft about deck construction and what should be going into your deck, regardless of which hero you're playing. So look forward to that video. I want to thank everybody on the panel today, and we hope to see you soon.
Take it easy.
Peace.
Thank you.